Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
With Tech to the VO stars. George Whittam, founder of Source Elements. Robert Marshall, international audio engineer. Darren Robbo Robertson and Global Voice. Andrew Peters, thanks to Tribooth. Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Source Elements. George the Tech Whittam. And Robbo and AP's international demos. To find out more about us, check theproaudiosuite.com.
Line up, ladies!
Here we go.
And welcome to another Pro Audio Suite. Thanks to Austrian Audio, making passion heard, and Tribooth. Don't forget the code TRIPAP200 to get $200 off your Tribooth. Today we have a special guest. If you're in the voiceover business, you probably know the name. If you're not, you probably know the voice. Our guest, David Kaye.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night, whatever. Where are we?
Yeah, we are all over the world. It's true.
Happy Hanukkah. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
I'm just winding up the cat and putting the clock out.
Wilma!
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know where to start with this, whether we go back to a bit of history of your career or because there is some strange sort of things we have in common because you kicked off in radio and so did I. You then ended up doing some acting on stage and I did some acting on telly.
Yeah.
And then we both end up in voiceover. And there's a Vespa involved along the way.
And a propensity to use overly priced vintage equipment, which I weaned David off of over the years.
Yeah, it weaned me off the teat of the original stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I was at a convention, a fan con thing called Anime Washington, up in Washington State, up south of Seattle and Puyallup over the weekend. And, you know, people remind you how old you are. Yeah, you're my childhood and I grew up with you. And I go, oh.
Yeah.
It's a little of that. But it also reminds me of what an incredible fun journey it's been. Because I kind of dreamed of all this, but never really. Yeah, I honestly did have a plan and knew what I wanted to do. And I think doing improv and theater, and some television up when, X-Files and those things that we came to Vancouver I was horrible at them, but it really was a great stepping stone until one day a friend of mine who actually does my website stuff, Mark Jensen, lives up in Kirkland, Washington. And he was in Vancouver for a while, lived up there for a while. And we had coffee one day, and I remember this conversation. It's quite a number of years ago. And he said, what do you want? Because I was run ragged all day long. It was studio at home. I had probably one of the first home studios, early adapter. Was sending out reel-to-reels and doing affiliate work and stuff and building a business. And I was on the air, and then I was doing on camera, and then cartoons came around. And so it was a pretty packed day, and I was having a ball. But he's like, "What do you want? What do you want to do? Because if you got to focus." Because I began to hate going into auditions because I hated everybody. Say, "Hey, DK, what are you working on?" I just, please don't talk to me. I don't. I just don't talk to me. Hey, shut up. And it was always the same, hey, got an audition for you for great. What is it? Cool. Is it, it's for the, Battlestar Galactica. Oh, fuck, that's fantastic. Great. I'm thinking makeup or going to be like a Ferengi or something. But no, you're the newsman number 2. And I go, oh, God, okay. So I enjoyed it and it was fun, but it became like, I don't want to go. So that's why I went and did more theater and doing things that are not me. I wanted to be taken out of myself and preferably not put back in from Noises Off. That's a great line. And in animation and cartoons and voiceover and, at the time radio was perfect because I could be anybody. I didn't have to look anyway. And that was what I loved about it. You can do anything and anybody and you weren't typecast. So,
I'm interested to know, this is actually my 36th year in radio. I do radio imaging for a bunch of radio stations here and around the world. And there's a bunch of skills that I learnt in radio. One of which I still get sort of comments on is learning to work fast.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I get compliments on. I'm wondering whether starting out in radio sort of taught you a skill or two that you still lean on or get complimented on.
Well, it's funny you should mention it because I really didn't think about that until you said. I went, oh yeah, that's correct because George has seen me work. I work quick. I don't screw. Like as the script comes in, I don't even sometimes I don't proofread it. People, what's your process? Process. Get it in, get it out, make sure it's damn good, and then move on. I mean, radio taught me that. I had my mentors and people I emulated, and George knows this about me. I don't pay attention to a lot of. He asked me, "Well, do you know this guy?" And I said, "I don't. Maybe I'm not very good at that. That sort of networking thing."
I mostly sit there and listen to you go. Come on, let's go. Come on.
Yeah.
To the computer,
yeah. Time is money.
Or whatever you're doing. Like, come on,
quickly, please, quickly. But people because of now. There's all these levels of quickly. It's either by end of day, EOD, ASAP, rush, hot rush, super hot rush. And in this and I could be anywhere in the world. We're in Italy and I'm in a closet thinking, okay, it's midnight, so I got to get this. And they want something, they want things right away and they cast quickly and I love doing it. Number one, I love it. So if it's 1 a.m. and I feel like shit, I'll still do it. Because I just want to do it, I may not get it, but I just want to practice and see what I got, see what I can come up with. I don't pay attention to a lot of stuff on the periphery, and I don't really know things. But I just, and then you mentioned that thing about radio, and it kind of put a light bulb went off, and I said, Dad, that taught me to think on your feet quickly and get it in, get it out, and the only thing, when I was in radio. And I have tapes, and it's a wonder someone even gave me a job when I hear some of the stuff. But they did, thank goodness, and thank them. But I was begging. Steve Lowe is his name, real good guy, funny guy, and ran a studio. And I would bug him all the time about just even if you think I can't do it, just let me come in here. I'll just read. Let me just get in there. Let me read some stuff because I was kind of getting into it at that time back in the early '90s. And so he floated me something and said, "Hey, DK, I got something for you." He said, come on by. And it was not announcery. And I had a habit of 75 degrees on top. He'd be black hell's my daughter. All that sort of stuff we do. Yeah. And it was like, well, okay, that's an element of show business. But that's not, they want like conversational and real people and in commercial acting and stuff like that. And anyway, it's okay. Well, I did it and I booked it. And he says, you'll never believe this, but I booked my first thing I read for Steve, and so he kept bringing me in. They kept bringing me in, and more people started bringing me in. And it was, I had to drop and get rid of all the sort of isms that I can do at a drop of a hat, but they had to go away. And I had to be more myself, but I started to develop more characters to hide behind because it was hard being myself and just doing my own voice for many years. And I like the way I sound, so I'll do a wizard. I'll do an old man and a wizard. And I go, I can put my mask on and be anyone. I was doing all that stuff. And even so much in trailers for the first while, it was this, the character sort of reads that have to be, real, but that they're real people and have a heart and soul and they have to live and breathe and laugh. And it wasn't until years later, when there was two things that happened. I was cast as Optimus Prime in the animated series, Transformers Animated, and I was having trouble finding the voice. So they cast me, and it was great, but I was uncomfortable really, because Sue Blue, the director, says, DK, it's just you, DK. It's just you. Just be you. It's just because here I was struggling, and I went, just be me, and I just went. I did an episode, and we recorded, and she goes, there. You hit it. I went, what did I do? She goes, you're just Dave. You were just being Dave. And it's just transform and roll out. Let's, who's with me? What are we going to save the world? We're going to try, where's me? She said, it's just be you. And I go, oh my God. So I can drop all that shit. I can just be me. She goes, yeah. And another one was finally I started booking more trailers when I was so frustrated. I got a read from Jay Marks, and it was for the Clint Eastwood company, and it was Richard Jewell. It was a Clint Eastwood film, and I was like, fuck, I don't know, you know what? I just turned the mic on. I was to Luca Lake, George, and I was like, Richard Jewell, rated PG-13. Richard Jewell in theaters Friday. Blah blah. I just went. I didn't do anything. I said, whatever. I'm done. I'm gonna quit. I quit this job. And Dave Karp calls back and says, hey, they like you for the Eastwood film. I go, what? She goes, yeah. I go, I didn't do anything. And Dave says, exactly. Yeah. He says, exactly. I go, oh my God. So all this time, so it became it became another in the arsenal of all the things that I do, just to be me. And I go, oh my, that's the secret. There it is. It took me 40 years to figure that out. But you learn things along the way, and people say things. And I really think, back to your original question about radio, I think that taught me to just be present, be in the moment, get it done. Don't linger, because you overthink things, and that's where the problem is, when you start overthinking stuff. And I don't anymore. I just boom, right in. If it doesn't work, let's give it another shot. And I'll let it cook and come back to it. But your first gut instinct is usually the one.
I remember my days in radio, and I'm sure it's the same for you, that when you finished your on-air shift, you were into production if you didn't get out the door quick enough. Being chased down the corridor by the production guy. Oi, come back here. Yeah. Just chugging them out.
Yeah, and that was funny, because that was actually the funnest part of it. I would look forward to going in the booth and, what do you got? What do you got? And if it was like one or two spots, like, oh, that's it? Shit. But I used to love that.
I used to
love it. Yeah, really, because that was where I just really enjoyed it. I had and then I begged the program director for the rock station if I could be the voice, because Jim Conrad, a friend of mine up there at Kono, and I loved his voice, and he was he was the voice of CFMI and Rock 101. And it was like, oh, dude, how do you do that? How do you? And I was working on stuff, and I knew the voices, and I thought, if I build a business, if I put a pin in a map and get 1%, 0.3% of all the stations in America, that might want to put me on the air. That's how I built that business. And that came from, Kono inspired me to do that. And my boss, my first, Jim Johnson at C Fox in Vancouver, put me on the air as the voice of the Fox, and that was so fun. And then things started really growing. Yeah. The agency came along, New York happened, but again, all this stuff came from radio. All the love of all of it,
I'm interested to know. You mentioned before about starting on analog at home. With your home studio, and you've still got one now. What's the biggest game changer that you've found for your home studio?
George Whittam.
George.
Okay. Besides the unbiased plug.
Yes. Because I remember I got this equipment. Here's another thing, radio. Being from radio, I have a Bakelite volume knob. I have this very weird, strange habit that maybe you or other radio people still have, is I ride the pot. Mm-hmm. And depends on, I don't always do it, but depends on what I'm doing. I don't like to hear dead air. I don't like to hear, and so I ride the volume pot, and I go through quite a few of these things on
your headphone volume specifically.
The headphone volume, and I used to do that, on the radio, for radio, and it was a thing where you turn it up, LG73, you turn it down, and here's my, you do the whatever, and I used to crank on this thing, and I've been doing that forever. So. It's numerous occasions. We've gone through a few of them. Yeah. But the old Bakelite knobs were like this. It was a comfort thing. And I think it's just sort of maybe a thing that it's comforting to have that, the old radio knob there. So
he wears out
stuff,
the pot. He wears out the pot. The actual the dial itself wears out. But we just keep.
Like you're hearing the end of your breath and the very details of everything. You're turning it up at the end. Is that?
I don't know really what. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think it was because I was hearing the music. When I was hearing the music in the cans, but that was when I was wearing both cans. I don't wear both. I usually don't wear cans, or I wear one ear because I don't like to hear. It's too much. And I used to always be that way. But the analog equipment just to me sounded warmer. I could hammer on it. I could do soft reads with especially the Neumann U67 and this Peluso P67 baby here that we took us a while to find. It just captures all the nuance and the roll off and the natural clean. And the U67 was just with the tubes, the LA3A limiter compressor, the old Uri Hollywood.
Oh, you had a 1081, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a 10.
Oh, like a Neve. No. Oh, wow.
I had the Neve. I had a Neve preamp. I had all this wonderful, sound. But I used to, because I used to crank on it and it was fine, but it got kind of futzy and the mic would be, I was over the microphone and spent a lot of time at George Bolas's in Burbank being reconditioned and refurbished. And even George said,
I can keep this thing going, but you're going to be bringing it in all the time. And
yeah.
So
that's interesting that a 1081 and a U67 is very, very old school and very English.
Yeah. Very.
Yeah.
I was doing that in my first home studio, and that was my gear. I mean, I had that gear way back. I wanted this classic gear. I wanted this sound, and over the years developed it. And then, of course, people want clean. And I was, back in the day, I was all about, the limiter, just hammering the hell out of the limiter. Yeah. And they don't, that doesn't work in trailer. It doesn't work in cart. They want that stuff off. So over the years, George's been great. And I've been, I have a system now where it sounds clean for radio.
Sometimes it's by accident, because when gear would go down, we had to patch around, right?
Yeah.
So one time we discovered that the preamp and the compressor on your board was a close enough proximity to the LA4.
Yeah, the Allen and Heath. I love it.
It was close enough in proximity that we were A/B'ing it and going, that's pretty close.
Yeah,
which is pretty wild. Think about it. And then so in the effort for me, my effort with David is just keeping him running like all the time, and having as few failure points as possible. So the amount of stuff in David's rack is, the only thing in his rack now is a Mac Mini and the amp for his speakers, and that's it. The rack is empty.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's
I used to have a big rack. Who knew?
Yes, it was Mike. It was Mike into all that channel strip, and now it's just Mike into an XB10 mixer, out to an Apollo for some final processing, some polishing, and then off it goes. That's it.
My question is, though, because I remember when COVID hit and everyone had to go and work in, from home, and agents, particularly in America, saying you have to have a U87 and a 41.6. Well, I think it was mainly U87. So now you don't have a U87 and you're doing a lot of animation. So is anybody ever tapping you on the shoulder and saying, excuse me, wrong microphone?
What I get is
I don't think anybody's going to have an issue with a
they tell me, they say, oh yeah, it sounds great, man. Everybody says your studio sounds better than one over at so and so. I've had those comments, and it's just the mic chain. But no, U67 during COVID though. There was a couple of series we were on and doing a video game, and they sent over a lavalier set. So I have a lav set. Still have it here. I ended up buying one, and because they pick up, and I'd hooked that in. So I had a lav set. I had the P67, and I have the Vantage, which I quite like, is a second mic. I love to play with that.
The Vanguard V13.
The Vanguard.
Well,
sorry.
You're missing one thread of the story, which is that somebody insisted you had a U87.
Oh,
actually, remember they were sending you a U87
right.
and a Scarlett
Farzar
in a box.
The series I was doing, Farzar for Netflix, and it was funny as hell. And the guys are not tech guys, but the team. It had to install Pro Tools on the computer, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
So I just sat back and they just ran everything.
All remote, yeah.
And that was weird. But yeah, they insisted. But we ended up looking for we did the Townsend Labs emulator, and you brought that to my attention, right?
Well, the reason we had to get it is because you literally could not buy a U87 at the peak of the pandemic.
Right.
The fall of 2020, there were no U87s available.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. I mean, if somebody had one used, they would ask for a ridiculous amount of money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, hey, why don't we try out this Townsend Labs
It's like having
mic?
a phone with TikTok installed on it.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, why don't we just try, this Townsend Lab mic and make this thing work? And we did. And it turned out to be a good stand-in, and the rest was history after that.
And I used that on the road.
That became your road mic, and
that's
that is
a road
what
mic.
he travels with.
I travel with everywhere.
Not a road mic, but
not a road brand mic, but his travel mic is a Sphere L22. That's right. It's pretty remarkable, but it gets that sound that he wants, and it gets that 67 sound damn straight up close, and he's able to slap that thing up in his Tesla or wherever he's at. Boom.
Yeah, I lay everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like, you remember I called you in a panic It won't be the Tesla for long. It'll be another one. Something different.
You have the bumper sticker that says, I bought it before the CEO went batshit crazy.
Yeah, it's the one I'm going to get for my, when can I get, how can I get out of this again? But the cool thing is that no matter where I am, I've tested, we're in Japan, we're in Italy, and it was it's like, well, this is great. So I just booked more trips because now this is not a problem. My agents are happy. Everyone's happy. No one cares. But the one thing that really solidified the Townsend Labs is when I'd take the 416 shotgun because it was lightweight, didn't weigh anything, and I didn't want to carry a bunch of stuff. Well, as soon as I was using that, everyone, are you in a different? Because I didn't want people to know where I am. I just wanted, I don't want them to think that I'm somewhere else. They were right. Everyone was like, "Are you? Can you? It sounds different." And I go, "Oh, damn it!" And that's what I wanted to be able to be consistent all the way across. And so the system I have now is like, okay, this is good. That's where we are with it. So I can travel and
a tri booth.
Extra one in here. The tri booth too was a game changer. If I'm going to be anywhere for longer, I have it shipped somewhere. And in a pinch, like I was at this convention in Seattle, we had C-Suite installed on my laptop because I had to record some stuff on the Friday this past weekend. I was still on the clock. I had to come back and do some things. And the windows, I mean, it was a nice hotel. It was fine, it was standard. But it wasn't the street is like just outside. And like, oh, this is gonna suck. But I loaded up C-Suite, emailed George, and I said, "What's the highest I can go on this thing?" And I cranked it up. I did all my set, and no one said a thing. And I listened to it back, and it sounds fine. It didn't pick up anything, and it's clean.
It's scary, yeah. So what's the box? What's the box to the left of the Allen Heath?
Well, this is the new toy, and I haven't even opened it yet. It's the entrance. This
entrance. Oh yeah,
this entrance.
I can tell you, it's wonderful.
The C entrance. So that's the next iteration. I don't even want to look because I'll just open up and
is that
and
a
drop
passport?
and ruin something.
Is that what he's got?
Yeah.
So anxious
with
to
the nice
see.
case.
Wow,
He's got the case too.
In it. So that's George's next project. Go through that when we get out of here.
That's been George's last project for the last 2.5 years.
Yeah,
exactly.
Should have been 6 months.
The clamp. It was brilliant. A brilliant idea that George. I can clamp it anywhere and be. It's just amazing. So.
Oh, you'll love it. You'll love it.
Combine that with a tri booth, and you're laughing.
Yeah, you got the whole kit there, David. You got the tri booth.
Yeah,
you've got the passport.
I'm able to sort of do it anywhere. I've driven downtown to meetings or dinners, and I have the gear in the car, and I get called out, and I can jump in a car in a parking lot or down, and get things done because being available is a big deal. If you're on a trailer campaign or you're some promos, and on a Friday at 5:00, dude, got ABC wants you. Can you do 5:30? Go. Before I've left, but now it's like, okay, let me just find a spot, and it's doable.
Yeah,
it's nothing like saving lives, right?
It's nothing. No, it's nothing to do with that. I like to be get it done, get it, and that's that radio sensibility I learned. It's just you
like to say yes.
I do like to say yes.
And then going back to what you said originally, your first thought, like how many times have we had people who just direct the crap out of you, and then later you probably don't even see this in the session, but later we're going through all the takes with the clients, and what do they use? Take one or take two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The first one.
Even though you did 60.
Let's go back to one. I didn't mind one, actually. Yeah, how many times?
One was good.
That's an old the old movie director Arthur Hiller directed. I was in a movie called Carpool a long time ago, and with Tom Arnold and I think his brother was in that. There's a few people I knew in that, but I played a reporter. It was a very funny role, though. I got to ride in a helicopter. They forgot to record everything in the helicopter, which is the money they spend on a helicopter hovering above a fair. They spend all this money on a fair, on Ferris wheel and rides, and we're hovering, and I'm reporting. And we realized after the entire 2 hours in the air that they didn't get anything.
Oh God!
They had to cut it. Yeah, it was bad. And Arthur was up with me riding around. But there's one scene that he said, let's just rehearse it. So we're going in and blah, blah, blah. And the old woman was with me. She was very funny, Betty, and I did my thing. And, that's all from the scene and it's whatever I did. And then they said, all right, and cut it. And we realized that, that's a good one. He had notorious for filming the rehearsal. Yeah. And that's another thing you learn from people. Like they say, yeah. So I always trust my gut instinct has served me well, and I'm not about to abandon it. My process is maybe it's just like this. Let's see what happens. This is open the mic. Let's start talking and see what happens. Yeah. In animation, like this role here, I had Megatron for the Beast Wars Transformer back in the early 90s. I mean, I didn't see the earlier cartoons. I was into Bugs Bunny and stuff. But, I mean, I did not know what to do. I had a whole stack of stuff that compares the characters to each other and all this information. And I went, I don't know. So I went in and last minute, I just kind of, what do you got? He said, well, I thought I'd try. I was bullshitting. I thought I'd try, I kind of dig Anthony Hopkins and Sean Connery and, what if they had a baby? And it's like, and we all laughed and a lizard. And he said, let's try it. Let's just lay one down. I'm thinking, lay what down? Like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Yeah. And so they literally had the scripts there and and he goes, all right, so, Dave Kaye, I'm going to take one. And I was like, and I started talking. Like, I just thought of Shakespeare and I kind of combined those quickly. And I had this voice and it was just, I use this. I was slow and I took my time. I said, yeah, man, sounds good. Let's do one for safety. And I got called back and I ended up like, it was really, I didn't know. And there's other roles I've worked my ass off thinking I go back to it and go, nothing's sticking, and
I think I did a session with you where you were doing a McDonald's spot and you were being David Attenborough, like.
I was, the McDonald's story. So I was a stand-in for Brian Cox for a while for McDonald's, a stunt voice, because he was busy and they had him on contract for a certain amount of spots. Well, the clients hated hearing other voices because they wanted to hear Brian. They couldn't, he's only in the studio and he does these spots and that's it. And so they were casting for a stunt voice, and I just worked on that. So, Brian Cox said, "Fuck off! I love you."
So that's him saying McDonald's. He says McDonald's.
Yeah.
He doesn't say McDonald's. He says McDonald's.
McDonald's. Yeah, McDonald's.
McDonald's.
And I just somehow hit the timber. And I was a stunt voice. It's a weird gig, but it was really fun. I got to talk to all the crew, and just sort of imitating Brian Cox for a while. You just kind of throw things up there.
How'd you pick up the accents? Because you're very good with
after the show. It's just listening, There's certain things in the show. I was one of my favorite shows to watch was, what's the big show he's in, the series, Succession, right?
Succession, yeah.
And he was just so good in that, and he has these little nuances. It's British, but it's American, and it's sort of, and I love you, but you could all fuck off. And I just there's certain things I pick up on. The other one was Liam Neeson was one I've done in ADR and things like that to help with the trailer, and it's an American, Irish American accent. It's from here. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want, and I will kill you. It gets lower and lower.
It's creepy.
And there's other versions of that. I used to create the He-Man Masters of the Universe Battle Cat, kind of a stronger voice, and I have claws, Adam. I have claws, and I will protect you. And I just became. I sort of meld things. So I use the voice actors, the voice performers' greatest asset. AP, you'll know, you guys will know this is your ears. And that's why musicians are so good. You listen and you can pick things up and you hear. That's your greatest advantage, is using your ears for this job, because that's a big part of it. People forget that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the key.
The digital age has us watching screens rather than listening to what's going on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to ask you a question, and this one, if I don't ask you this question, I'll be in trouble, because it's actually from my two boys, one's 8 and one's 7. And in a very unpro audio suite-like fashion, I was actually doing a bit of research on you last night, so I kind of had an idea who I was talking to. And they were in the room, and they actually spotted the fact that you've not only voiced one character on Transformers. You've actually done 2, Megatron and Optimus Prime. Is that right? Apparently one's
Optimus is my voice.
okay.
Yeah.
And apparently one's a villain and one's a good guy, and they wanted to know which one was your favorite and why.
Oh, the Shakespearean one, Megatron. I'm holding up to the camera that no one can see.
Yeah, I can see.
And it was written very Shakespearean, and it was that internal debate, and I love that in Bob Ford and Larry DiTillo were the writers on the first 2 seasons of that one. And there's this, to be or not to be, that is a question. Noble minds to suffer the things that rage his fortune, or to take up arms against. He's always internal. And stop calling me that. Don't. Predacons, he was all over the map, and he was thinking. And I love those levels and screwing around in there. The good guys are tough because it's all nuance, and it's part of who I am. And that took a bit for the good guy because I was always used to having something to bite into, that role on stage, you can kind of get into it. The good guys, you have to be careful. You can't overplay them. So again, just being myself, it kind of worked there. The other characters on Transformers, I've done a bunch involved. There was one, this is a sort of lesson if those in the business, don't forget you can use your hands and you can make faces. When you used to make faces in the mirror as a little kid and scare yourself, well, you can do that in auditions too, and that gets you the job because you start applying pressure. I had a job as an Insecticon on Transformers Prime. He had his big mandibles, the picture of him, so that helps. So he had this big, he kind of drool. So you've got this, I'm leader of the hive, Insecticon, and you use your jaws. That creates this sort of thing in here.
Oh my God, my boys are going to wet their pants
when
I hear this.
It's almost like The Godfather, where they made his cheeks so big, but then it changed how he read.
But it's just, you can do stuff. D. Bradley Baker's famous for it. Frank Welker's, can do magic with his voice. There's all kinds of fun stuff. It's all from being kids. It's all from never growing up. One of the greatest advice I ever got was from Mickey Rooney, and we was doing it one of my first cartoons, and Mickey was in the cast, and he flew up to Vancouver at the time, and he said, I got some advice for all of you. Don't ever grow up. And I'm like, Mickey Rooney, don't. And he's right. He's right.
That's actually a question that had occurred to me earlier, and I guess now you bring it up again, but I know a few guys who are particularly good character voices. One you might know, a guy called Keith Scott, who was in the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie. He's an Aussie guy who does some amazing characters. And another guy called Dave Gibson, who Andrew and I have worked with in radio, who's also a very good character voice. And talking to you now, it makes me realize that you're all very similar character types. Like just in terms of general personality, you're all very similar and have similar quirks. Do you reckon being a good character voice comes from that? Do you reckon there's a certain character trait or style that leads to someone being good at character voices?
I think so. I think you can't be afraid to try something, and you can't be afraid to make a fool of yourself. And that's hard to do. Yeah.
Is that easier off camera?
When you're well, on camera, it's funny. We used to have some on-camera people come in. Fred Willard would come in, but he's a pro. These guys are pros. On Transformers, Weird Al Yankovic could be in one day, and some other people. There's one comedian came in. I didn't know his name, but he we're all in there, and the guest mic is usually beside me, and which is kind of cool. And we had one comedian who's he's funny dude, but it'd be his part. We're like, blah blah blah, and the scene's going. He's like way back here and goes. Okay, cut. So we gotta make sure you gotta get up on that microphone, or you gotta. And he didn't sort of understand he was really slowing us down. But it's because you can use an eye roll on camera easy, or a quick look, a quick twitch of the eye, and that says something. You have to make that happen on the mic. You have to make people cry on here. You have to be as real as possible. Well, you have to be real. Never that's possible. You got to bring the truth. And the biggest, one of the cool moments I loved was we were working on the Ratchet and Clank movie, and there's a line in it that Clank has. He's a robot, but I said, I want to make people cry. This is the line, James. Yeah, man, you should try that. I said, because this is where, I want people to cry. I want people to feel something for this moment. And Ratchet goes off in the movie, and this little Clank, and it's like this moment where, but Ratchet,
you're my friend. And I just, and I remember being in the movie theater, seeing it, and we had a little premiere and we're sitting in the movie. And when that happened, everyone goes, oh, and I go, yes, that's it.
Did it.
There it is. I want to,
Yeah.
these little nuances in your voice, these little quivers, little moments are so cool. And it just takes a while to develop that, being on the planet for a while. And if you understand acting and the process of it, then this is part of your tools. But that's the coolest thing for me is to try and, be emotional and be in the moment with this. And there's no cameras. It's just you internally. And I think you have to be a little weird.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but that was one of the traits.
Yeah.
A little.
I own it. I think, man, as a kid, I would make faces and mimic and get in trouble for it and scare myself in the mirror, being goofy. And I think that's all part of it.
Yeah, a little bit of crazy, a little bit. Probably not weird. Crazy is the word I would use. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just sort of, you have to think in a different way. Who knows? I honestly don't know where it comes from. I'm just really glad it does because I didn't know what I was going to do after high school.
It's funny because I've spoken to Keith Scott a lot. I've done many sessions over the years with him, and he says the same thing. I'm kind of not sure where it comes from, but it just comes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can always tell, though, that like certain people, that you grow up with, when they're telling a joke, they will actually go into characters in the joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're the ones that, obviously should follow that path out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's audiobook. In audiobooks, they want you to do the same thing. They want you to envelop that person speaking. But you hear good joke tellers and they go into that's the best. That's the funniest because it puts you.
I mean, those are the comedians.
Yeah, your imagination,
right? Like when some comedian does his wife, and even though it's a caricature of it, you kind of
Oh yeah, you can see her and picture her.
Yeah,
when he's telling a story, and that's it. That's what it is.
You were talking about Bill Burr before, and
there's a movie that just came out only just recently called Memoir of a Snail from Adam Elliott, who did what was the first film that won the Oscar? Harvey Crumpet. It won a short animation Oscar. Anyway, his new one, The Memoir of a Snail. Sarah Snook just won Best Actress award at Our Actors, which is the equivalent of our Oscars. As a leading female, actor in a film, like an animation voice as opposed to someone on camera. She was in the nominations with all the on camera and won the gong.
It's very difficult to do because you really, I do have a process when doing that when we're doing films or we're doing shows like that require something going on that I usually I memorize the dialogue quickly and I close my eyes. And I can sort of see if I close my eyes and it kind of takes me a little bit inward. And if I have to do that, I will do that. It's a real skill, and it's there was a time, and also as you know, there's many different decades of announcers. In the 30s and 20s, 30s, 40s, and the 50s is different, and the 60s. There's different sort of styles in the way we talk, and the more realism, like video games used to be, pow, no, pow, pow, all that stuff. But now it's all, they're going for immersion, total immersion eventually in the video game world where they want a human experience. And so they're really trying to, even as a character, it's got to be a grounded sort of, person. It is quite fun to try and get there. Sometimes you don't. But that's my goal is every character I do in any shows to try and have a soul, it's an actual, actual person and not something, because you can certainly overdo it. My acting coach used to say, no, you're acting. Stop acting,
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like what you said with the good guy characters. Sometimes those have to be more natural to pull. Like they're more they're more relatable, and the evil characters.
Yeah, it's hard to do because it's tough to do to be myself, to take the mask off. We all wear masks every day, and we have our own selves. But to be you, to be me in something was uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it's like, well, I don't want to hear me. Well, I got nothing.
Yeah, But you do.
You realize
you need the mask, definitely, absolutely.
Yeah. And then as you get older, you go, fuck, I don't need the mask. I just be me. Well, that was easy. Huh. Wow, how freeing is that?
At some point, other people are doing you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
that's true. Yeah.
But the other thing that's interesting I've found is when people who have a character, they want a character voice, and they become so specific that it is impossible to do it and make it sound natural.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I had someone call me up a studio and said, "Oh, do you know any Swedish voice talent?" And I said, "No, I don't." And I said, why do you want someone? Can you do a Swedish accent? It's like, no, I can't do a Swedish accent.
Yeah.
And they said, why do you want someone so specifically Swedish? Oh, that's what the client wants. And I said, but why? Why? You know, it doesn't make any sense. And if you get someone that's not Swedish, anyone that is Swedish is going to know they're not Swedish.
Yeah.
So it ended up where we didn't. We did a weird hybrid character, and it was fine. But
I'm not sure what you mean, Andrew.
Well, funnily enough, talk about Swedish. My daughter is now in a film playing a Swedish mosquito in an animated feature, which is really funny.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, those are specific things. I've been asked to do that. Now, you know, there was a time when we could do other ethnic voices, and it was just you never thought about it. You can't do that now. So that's why they want the real Swedish person, but the Swedish person has to be an actor. They have to understand all that. They have to bring all that. So just and just be themselves.
Yeah.
So you're narrowing the the pool down.
Yeah, let's make it really difficult. Yeah,
we had a spot where it was two Japanese characters for the English version. So it was like these Japanese guys that had, or they're speaking English, but they had a very Japanese accent. So now we're now doing the Hispanic version of it.
Yeah,
and they try to cast a Japanese or a Spanish person with a Japanese accent. I'm trying to remember what they were melded together. It was going to be
it's kind of tough.
It didn't exist.
Yeah. No.
It just didn't exist. And so they ended up with we just had an actor in and just ran through different voices and how about I can't even do it. But eventually they landed on something they liked. But there was no casting that. It's nowhere.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know what's really interesting that's happening in Japan? Because a friend of, or guy I know, used to be sharing agent. I think he's out of the business now, but he moved up to Japan. He speaks fluent Japanese. But the Japanese anime companies really like to get English accented Japanese language for their anime.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow.
So
I would live over there in a heartbeat. So if there's any openings, let me know.
Learn Japanese and you're in.
in Japan?
Yeah, I would live there at a second.
Is that a culture thing or a business thing?
It's something that it's just that country affected me. I mean, Italy does. I can speak the language in Italy. My wife's the same, but in Japan, I learned a little bit and I really enjoyed it. But it affected me. It did something to me. And there's another thing it brings me around to when you're doing voice work and using this microphone is the more you travel, the more you read, the more things you experience in life, the more it will translate through here in nuance of some kind. When you have experience. You look at a piece of copy, you can interpret it, you can understand, and because you hear people when you go places.
You meet more people,
You meet more, you understand. Like there's humans are have a lot of nuance, and there's personalities, and it depends on where you live. It brings a different bent to it. So, my suggestion to anybody, I always had a great acting coach once that said, "What are you reading? First class. What are you reading? You're not reading it." Yeah, I want a book by next week. He said, go to the library, pick something out, or go to a bookstore that's like, close your eyes and grab one and start just whatever. But the more you are informed about, like Charles Dickens, read the classics, read all that stuff informs what we do. It's all from there. Even the Greeks, if you want to, it's Jesus. I mean, but it's storytelling.
Just occurred to me, every trip, every vacation you go on is a write-off. Everyone is a opportunity to research and study human behavior, character.
They're moments.
I must tell my accountant.
I had a friend who was a video editor, and he wrote his cable TV off.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, of course. So you go.
Yeah.
Here's another thing it's fun to do. It's a little game we play. My friend Trevor DeVal lives down in San Antonio now, but he would, he was in town or he lived here. We'd want to go for lunch someplace or whatever. He said, "What do you want to do today?" He goes, "Northern Ireland." He's all right. Northern Ireland it is. Northern Ireland. So we go to that little pub around in Foreman's, about Toluca Lake, and we go in and start talking like that. And he says, "What'd you go? What's on tap?" And she says, "Oh, where are you guys from?" "No, Northern Ireland, from Belfast." "No, yeah, I'm just north of Belfast." And we just bullshit our way through. And the idea was to hold the accent, the entire thing. Oh. And it was great because she would go, "Oh, you guys are great. So have a great time in LA. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, we're leaving on Thursday. So we'll be back." Whatever we said, and then we walk out and go, "Yes, okay." And then we pick another accent and try and hold that one for a while in another restaurant.
That's great.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's fun. It's a little, weird, but
it can backfire on you, David. Yeah. It can backfire.
Yeah, when you find out the waiter is just moved here and he's trying to get a gig, but in the meantime he's serving at the restaurant.
Yeah. "Oh, you're from Belfast too, and I'm from Belfast. Oh, where the fuck you guys from out it?"
I was in London and I had to go and meet someone in Chelsea, and I thought, well, I won't drive my car into Chelsea because the parking is hideously expensive. So I just stopped north, just in Stoke Newington, just North London, left my car there and got a cab. And for some stupid reason, I thought, I don't want to get ripped off by this guy, so I'm going to go back to, my original accent, and he'll fall for this one. So I've jumped in the cab and said, "Hello, mate. How are you? All right? Yeah, lovely. How's the Hammers going? All right. Oh, yeah, I saw them on the weekend, mate. Beat the Spurs. Lovely. Yeah, champion." All the way in, I get to where I'm going, catch up with friends, have lunch, get back in another cab. I've already paid 18 quid or something to get from Stoke Newington to Chelsea. I get the cab back to my car and it's £10.
It's the same guy.
Different guy.
£10.
Oh. I got charged 8 quid for putting on a shit accent.
See?
That's 10 quid for the taxi and 8 quid for being a dickhead.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to meet Billy Connolly once when I was working in radio. Yeah. And I actually got to spend a bit of time with him just having a chat because the guy who was supposed to be interviewing him was running late. And we were talking about him, because most of his comedy, I don't know if you've ever been lucky enough to see him, but most of his comedy is very local. Yeah. Like he'll talk about the guy sitting on the post office steps selling pencils and blah, blah, blah. And he was telling me about, the first thing I do when I get to town is basically before I even drop my bags off, sometimes I'll leave them in the foyer and I'll just go for a walk for an hour or two and sort of pick up what I pick up. Yeah. And I'm wondering, hearing you doing Irish accents and all that sort of stuff, is that sort of a part of the process, like just getting out and listening and observing and all that sort of stuff? And if so, how do you use that?
I do. I listen, and when we were in Italy in January, and I used to go to found a little bar in Valdelsa in Tuscany, and I found my routine. I got before everybody else, drive in, have a cappuccino, and sit there and listen to people. And you just learn about they have a rhythm and a movement.
Yeah.
Like South Americans have a rhythm and a movement and the way they speak. There's a play I did a long time ago, did Streetcar Named Desire. I was probably too young, but learning about, and the director said, "Listen, have you ever been to New Orleans?" "No." "Okay. It's really humid. It's hot. It's miserable. So that affects the way you move and the way you talk." And I went, "Oh, okay." And then we worked on it a bit and tried some stuff. And you had this rhythm. People don't really want to talk too much, and they kind of just too hot, man. And you can throw all that stuff into a character. A character comes up, and he's from Louisiana. I had a chance to play, and there's a series out called Fright Crew. It's on Netflix and that. Plug. And it's I got to play Mayor First, and he's this. He is well, he's not what he appears to be, but he's the mayor of the town, and he's very slimy, and so I got a chance to kind of play around in that soup of being from New Orleans, and I understand, sir, but I have to, I just kind of playing with it and come up with a character and dialed it in eventually, and that was fun because that took me back to that director saying, "Hey, listen, it's hot here. There's a mysticism about it. There's all these things. So when you go to a place, you go, oh yeah, you feel it. You can throw that into your character. Throw that. What if you're doing a True Green commercial for crying out loud? You can throw that in if they want for a certain type of person. You can see the person on the golf course, and you give yourself like how hot is it? How cold is it? How it affects." How you're going to read it. But it's all very important. All translates.
Yeah.
There's also, the thing about traveling and listening to people. And I've seen a few videos of this. There's one guy, in Afghanistan who pulls it off. And he sounds completely American. I mean, completely American, and he says absolutely nothing. It's just all syllables and
Yeah.
And, I mean, I can't even do it. But man, I mean, if you weren't paying attention to him, you'd think like some guy from not New York, maybe Pittsburgh, whatever, like in that, and sounds
it is
like perfect
That's
background.
cool.
Yeah. My goal is I've been in New Jersey for a while, but my goal is I want to go to New Jersey and visit because I have lots of friends there, and I just want to be I just want to have I just want to use the accent all day long.
Yeah.
I just want to use. I just want, I want to go to. If I get Jersey, I just want to talk about. I just want to talk like that. I want to be around people to talk like that. I want to hear what's going on. Let's go to the fucking bar. It's hanging out.
And Boston's another wonderful city. And just one little conversation with people. The driver we were taking us to the fan convention center at Fan Expo, and driving us back, and we drove. We're talking about the ballpark there.
Fenway.
Fenway Park. And I said, "You ever think they ever tear down Fenway?" He said, "Fenway Park?" He said, "No, there'll be an uproar. There'll be an uproar in the city. They tore down Fenway Park. There'll be an uproar." And I said, "Oh, fuck, look." I said, in my head, I'm going, "Listen to that. That's it's perfect.
Yeah.
I can use that.
Even better, keep going north to Maine and start doing Maine accent.
Oh, you go up in the oh my god,
sounding like Bernie.
Yeah, that's right. Up in there, up in Bernie territory.
Come here.
But I just, it's just wonderful. And, so you listen and travel and be, and just take a moment and
Soak it in.
I am guilty sometimes of not, when I'm on the road, or I'm sort of keep to myself. I don't, I'll talk to somebody, but I don't like to talk a lot. I like to listen. I like to kind of be someplace and not have to hear noise. I'm very much an observer. Maybe turn off to some folks, but I don't want to engage. I just want to hear.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that one of my quirks.
But part of the trick is to hear and to be able to break it down. Like you can hear someone speak, and it sounds like you have a ability to hear it and to throw it back at somebody. And whereas like you hear from someone from New York, and it's like I can't throw it back at somebody. I don't hear the details and what.
You just get sucked into it because you go to the deli every day. I usually go to New York for I would say at least minimum a week. And by the time you go around the deli, you're talking like, I get corned beef on rye, and give me a couple bagels to go. You just kind of have this thing, this quickness, this hey, come on. You just kind of fall into it.
Yeah,
pick up on it.
It's immersion. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's all good. It's all wonderful stuff for your career.
My girlfriend all the time, she'll hang out with me. She'll hear me talking to friends of mine, and she'll be like, "Why don't you talk like that with me? You always talk differently to me."
My wife
and I was
says
like,
the same
"I can't
thing.
help it.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
I'm mirroring your accents. I'm not doing it to imitate you. It's just this freaking weird thing in the head that like imitates and mirrors back what it hears, like a monkey see, monkey do thing. I don't. Why the hell does that happen?
I reckon the weirdest thing is another thing we have in common, by the way. We both live in a country we weren't born in. But I find it really weird now because I got to a point where I can't remember some words. Now, how do I pronounce that with an English accent or Australian? And I get confused. I'm trying to remember which one it is. How do you say that here? Like if I'm doing something domestic, I can't use an English version.
Well, I have the problem between Philly and California. Do you say route or route? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's a regional thing. Some people, if they ask for Midwest, Australia is fun, and the one of the most difficult is South Africa. It's very, very difficult.
That's a killer accent, isn't it?
It is.
Seriously,
It's so hard to isolate.
It's so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think New Zealand's also tough.
New Zealand.
Yeah, that's
New Zealand.
impossible.
They always asking questions. They're always talking questions.
Everything.
How's it going on?
Yeah. Well, that's Aussies too. Everything ends on an up. Everything ends on an up.
But Aussies, I don't. There seems to be there's a downward thing with Oz, but New Zealand seems to be an upswing.
Australia used to definitely be an upswing. That was always a thing. It's like, hello, mate. Here you go, mate. Well, it was always up. But now it seems to have, I think we've sort of got homogenized a bit, and we sort of, the accent has changed. Certainly changed since I've been here.
Possibly. Yeah.
I think one of the funniest things is when you hear your own accent. You usually don't hear it. And we were doing a spot. We had to do the scratch track, and my producer jumps in the booth, and he it's like blah 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 over at .com. And we go out and we play it. We're like, oh my god, you are so Chicago, like .com. Like,
yeah. That's what happens when I go back to Canada to visit. I mean, I really hear the accent. It's like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
It's because you can't have that. A friend of mine, he always jokes with me, saying stuff like, I thought he'd be kind of good there at trailers, eh? I go,
Yeah.
no.
No. Yeah, I thought I'd give her a shot, eh?
So when you go back to Canada, do people think you are American or?
No, I think I'm American.
Yeah.
I've been here so long. I mean, just the way, and even before then, I another good friend who did teach acting to class with people up in Vancouver, because there's a lot of American companies coming up to film, and he would do a class. Look, listen, he said, a boat is what you take and you go on the river with. A boot is what you put on your foot when you go out in the rain. It's about. So when they come up here and they hear a boot or a boat, it's not going to work, So, and he would sort of go through that bit in class, and they would work on other things. But he would make a point of saying, "Look, it's a service industry here, so make sure." But I couldn't do trailers, and I couldn't do promos, and with a Canadian accent, you can't. The Australian accent sounds amazing, British accent sounds amazing, but certain regionalisms in America and Canada just don't work. That's why they want a generic American or Midwestern accent, and here normally is the one that cuts through, unless they do ask. Now, there's been some stuff recently where it's come across as they want a little bit of twang, a little bit of, so that if you're doing stuff for NASCAR, they want sort of a thing in here. Maybe they want story of the South, that maybe, throw in a bit of a twang and a bit of a slowness and slow it down and tell the story. You got the Dallas who sound a little bit different. And you just sort of hear the regionalisms, and you're from the Carolinas is very soft, up in here, and
y'all come back now.
Y'all come back now. It's very nice in Charleston. You got to come visit us now one day, because we got. And it's just it's that's the way it is. I find it difficult, as a former, I'm still Canadian, but I was born there, but I find it difficult. It's a tough accent because my sister, my mother, and I go back. Oh my God! It's like, and there's two types of Canadian accents, and they're both lovable, but they're like like that, like a kind of going up and up. Oh, we're going up the boat there, right? Yeah. And then the other kind is they say your mouth like that, eh? Oh, geez, we're in the boat there getting pickerel up on the river, eh? We pulled out a couple of pops, eh, and having beers in the water, right? And you're like, it's to say in your mouth like that with a cigarette hanging out her.
Yeah.
And there's two types, and you got the French Canadian, which is another thing. But there's the two kinds. And I remember my brother-in-law, I took them to Jimmy Kimmel once. I was doing some work for Kimmel, as doing some voice comedy stuff years ago. And they got me tickets, and I brought my brother-in-law from Kelowna, British Columbia, and my sister-in-law. And Mike's pretty quiet, and of course the guy is down there rallying the crowd. All right, where's everybody from? Hey, where are you getting? Mike puts up his hand. I go, what are you doing? He goes, where are you from? He goes, Kelowna, British Columbia, eh? And I go, oh no, please stop talking. He goes, hey, Canada, and of course he start riffing on the A's and this, but Mike can't help her. He just talks like that. And it's just like, wow. But it's just the beauty of the accent, beauty of accents.
It's weird though that you basically just said that you have trouble with doing a Canadian accent because you've been away so long, and it seemed kind of weird.
It's right there, yeah.
And it's same like for me. If I'm back in the UK, and I remember when I moved back there back in the mid-90s for a while, and I used to go into the pub, and it was only probably about a week in, and I walk in and they go, "Hello, Oz, how you doing? All right."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I thought I sounded in Australia that people would call me English, but here I'm Australian.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I wonder if like dogs are like, that's a Canadian bark.
Yeah.
No, that's you are definitely
Woot.
The only thing I say in Canadian on any regular basis is, as we say in Canada, when in doubt, reboot. And I don't even think I said it right that time.
When in doubt, it's dote. When in doubt,
reboot.
Reboot. Yeah, it could get strong. Sometimes it's not in the bigger cities you don't find it, but there's certain regional areas where it's very thick.
You pick a little bit of that up in Minnesota too.
Minnesota's one, and Newfoundland's a wonderful accent. We went out there last year, and they're like the West Coast that facing the other way there. They're like the West Coast that facing the other way, and they're all friends. Yes, they're all friends to you. Where are you from? Los Angeles. Holy Christ! It's a long way to come out here to visit us. They're kind of Irish but Canadian and nicest people. But that's a fantastic accent. That one, I dig that.
Before we jump, I want to ask one last question because I was listening to you with all those different accents, and I'm wondering: is there a role that you're hanging out for? That you got a voice in your head that you just would love to be able to go, my God, finally the opportunity to use that voice?
Anything in Star Wars, but there's a lot of to be physical with the voice somewhere in here.
Yeah.
The guy that used to play the guy in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels was a criminal. You go get those fucking guns and you bring him back here. He's his old guy, And I've always wanted to do something in this realm.
Yeah.
I just love those characters.
Yeah.
Again, Jersey, and I've done some jerseys, but anything over the pond from the UK, and I was trying to do some Yorkshire. It was very difficult to do Yorkshire, but I want to work on that. And then I'm from the south of England, Weymouth and Dorset. Another area where it's kind of fun to work on those accents. But I love the character, the depth, and of the. I also got Welsh in my blood as well, not the bloody Welsh.
See if you can do the Isle of Man dialect.
Yeah.
Sounds like a motorcycle.
I remember
It's all I
remember as a kid, the first time I went to Wales as a kid, and with my parents, my brothers weren't with us, and we were staying on a farm. And to get rid of me, my parents said, "Go and talk to the farmer." The guy was an old guy, and he didn't speak English.
No, he spoke
He
Welsh.
just spoke Welsh. And so it was the most bizarre.
No idea what he was saying.
Kind of.
I remember I was in a pub over there. It was in a little place outside of my stag, and we drove near the coast, near Ports Call, where I had fish and chips, the best fish and chips. My grandmother actually, they still have ponies on the beach. My grandmother's, And I went to this old thatched roof. It's like it's an old pub, been there forever. An old cemetery next door. And I walked in, and my cousin brought me in, and this is my cousin Dave. He's from Los Angeles. Oh, he's from America then? I said, yes, I'm here for any Welsh. I want a good Welsh beer. And he goes, oh, there's no good Welsh beers. He said, you might want a pint of brains, but that's I sat there, had a Newcastle Brown in this old pub, and I just felt at home, for some reason. It just felt, I love those little things, little moments and visits with people, some locals. Picking it up, but
yeah.
So that's my advice. Just travel, read.
Be an observer.
Listen.
We could have dueling tri booths when we're next in Italy.
Oh man, I'd love that.
Or maybe you could make like a square out of the two.
Yeah, or a diamond. How about a diamond?
A tri-booth piazza.
A diamond, yeah. Diamond. And then you can fish it
rhombus.
Out of
a rhombus.
A rhombus.
I believe it would be a rhombus. The rhombus edition.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite, with thanks to Tribooth and Austrian Audio. Recorded using Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Robbo. Got your own audio issues? Just ask Robbo.com. With tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, theproaudiosuite.com.